When I started teaching in 2004, I was young and full of energy and ready to share scientific magnificence with the young people of New York City. Those first few years had a very steep learning curve, and I grew pedagogically as any new teacher should. I learned how to write a lesson, control a class, prepare students for the regents, execute a lab, and decide which shoes would allow me to make it through an entire day. After the first years, I even stopped crying in the stairwell between classes. I was growing by leaps and bounds. Then, after my third year, I changed boroughs and schools, settled into a new position, and stayed there for the next 8 years. I taught a few new classes, and I tried out some new techniques in the classroom, and even taught every grade from 6 to 12. But really, I had stopped growing pedagogically. My slides aren't changing, everyone. Oh, I did it. All right, good job. But really, I had stopped growing pedagogically. I was doing the same things over and over, using the same methods and routines, and complaining that I could never try new things because of the tests. God forbid I missed one standard and all my students failed the regents. I had no time or space in my classroom to take chances or try new risky ideas. I stuck with what was tried and true. Most of the teachers in my school taught and existed on their own little islands. We never had team meetings. Occasionally, we ran into each other in the prep room during periods off, and that was as close as we came to co-planning. I thought my career would follow this path until the day I retired. I mean, metaphorically and literally, everyone taught alone. I mean, I was at a pretty good school a mile from my home, and I was mostly left to my own devices. Sometimes I even got a fancy breakfast from Panera. I mean, it was a good, happy life. I could stay there, but really, I had stopped growing as a pedagogue. However, though, around year 7 or 8, I did have what I call a teaching crisis of faith. I had started to question my chosen career. I worked hard for my students, trying to show them how cool and fascinating science is. I spent countless hours at home, in and out of the building, working. However, despite all the blood, sweat, and tears I had poured into my work, I knew I would never get promoted. I would never get a raise. I mean, what was I doing with my life? I even thought about going back to school to become a vet. But in the end, I realized that being a teacher made me happy. Maybe I just needed to tweak a few things. All the rest of the pieces would fall into place, and I would find the job satisfaction I was looking for. Then, over a 2-ish year period, starting in 2010, a lot of things happened at once. I lost my mom. I met my husband. I got married. I had a baby. I got into MFA. I moved to New Jersey, and I got a job in Staten Island. So basically, complete life upheaval. If you had asked me where were the 2 places in the world I would never end up, I would have told you Staten Island and New Jersey. And here I am, working in the former and living in the former. Working in the former and living in the latter. Staten Island, New Jersey's got me all crazy. I can't even remember where I am. So I found myself teaching at a new school in a borough I had only ever driven through on my way to Jersey and Point South. And this new school had some very high standards, higher than anything I had been held to before. And meetings, so many meetings. In my previous schools, meetings were few and far between. So having grade meetings and crew meetings and department meetings, plus the new teacher meetings I was asked to attend, I was drowning in meetings. I think I may have even gone to a few meetings about meetings. So after I spent the first 2 months at the new school crying, I decided that it was time to blow my nose and dry my tears and dive in. Around the same time, a friend told me about MFA. I applied and got accepted and quickly fell in love with this new community. Everyone was there to learn and grow as educators. These were meetings I was happy to attend. As I embarked on this new phase in my life at a new and more challenging school, I had the comfort of knowing the talented and passionate MFA educators were going to help me learn and grow and support me in this journey. And through PLTs and personal connections, I started to craft lessons that met the high standards of this new school and were fun and engaging for my students and myself. I built trebuchets with my students to teach kinetic and potential energy and light up holiday cards to teach circuits. I even started seeing the abundance of meetings at the new school as being part of a community that listened to and supported each other rather than the burden they first seemed. Being a part of MFA helped me find my footing in my new space. So eventually, I became a master of meetings, and I moved beyond the relative safety of the new school and MFA to see what the wider educational community had to offer. I attended NSTA in Los Angeles, ESET2 in San Diego, ed camps throughout the New York and New Jersey area, urban advantage classes throughout New York City. I presented workshops on engineering and STEM education at ESET2 and the Expeditionary Learning National Conference, and even at MFA. I was going to more professional development than anyone else I knew, and it was actually paying off. During the stagnation years, I was reluctant to try anything new. I wore the state tests and AP exam like shackles around my wrists. I used all the old school teaching methods I had grown up with and was comfortable with because they seemed like they worked, right? Desks in rows where I talked at the students, lesson plans that read like sheets of facts. But as I branched out to the educational community, I learned that there were teachers that were getting rid of traditional grades, others that allowed their students to build and tinker in the content classrooms, or who took their students on adventures outside of the classroom that enhanced learning beyond the standard field trip. And those students were still thriving and performing successfully on standardized tests. There were even entire Facebook groups dedicated to sharing ideas and techniques and on running engaging science classrooms. Not only were other educators revolutionizing their classrooms, they were willing to share their ideas. But even as I met all these innovative and exciting educators, I knew, though, that as awesome as they were, there was still something missing. Some last bit of motivation I hadn't quite found. Then, in 2018, as I continued to grow my circle and support system, the heavens parted. The angels sang down from on high, and I found them, my people, the group of educators to whom I belong more than any group of people I have ever been a part of, the space nerds, my kindred spirits. And it was in 2018 that I discovered that there are entire conferences dedicated to teacher space nerds. You're looking at a woman who took herself to space camp for her 30th birthday. For years, I had been integrating space science into my curriculum wherever it fit, and even sometimes where it didn't fit. This conference was the opportunity for me to talk with other educators that were into space science just like me, and to learn from them and from actual NASA engineers and astronauts. So I received a grant that paid for me to attend the first ever space conference at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The first evening I was there was a mixer where I met folks from all over the country that were educators in formal and informal settings. And every one of them was into space science for themselves and for their students. We totally all geeked out as we got tours of the grounds and went to talks with astronauts like Eileen Collins and Winston Scott. I even made a new friend, Brian, a science teacher from New Jersey and fellow space nerd, with whom I would later present an engineering workshop at a conference. I had transitioned from teaching for standardized tests to someone who traveled and presented at conferences all over the country. And I was using that learning to create a new and dynamic classroom experience for myself and my students. At one point during the conference, I even met several teachers that were part of the Solar System Ambassadors, a group of educators organized through the Jet Propulsion Lab and NASA that spoke in their community about NASA and JPL missions, past, present, and future. And that's when I realized, really for real, that I had found it. The thing that was missing from all the other conferences, my real people. And not just these solar system ambassadors, but everyone at this conference. These were educators that were passionate about teaching, and even more so about teaching space science. The following year, I even became a solar system ambassador and attended the Space Exploration Educators Conference, or SEEC. I was exposed to space-based curriculums that I had never known existed. Did you know NASA has countless web pages dedicated to integrating space science into the classroom? So armed with that, my students and I jumped in with both feet, and we've done all kinds of amazing things. We've built egg drop Mars landers, balloon rockets, satellites that deploy instruments, straw rockets, and learned about the history and future of space exploration. We've made firsthand observations about objects in our solar system and even watched launches as they happen. And I found a group of people that were my people, my safety net, my cheerleaders, my support system when taking risks in the classroom. And just knowing they're out there has made me a bolder and better educator. When I'm structuring my entire physics unit to be about space, I know that I'm not just being the space-loving weirdo teacher. Well, maybe I am the space-loving weirdo teacher, but I'm also not the only one. There are thousands of us out there cheering each other on, and there's safety in numbers. They will be there with tangible help, support, ideas, and to listen to my ideas as an educator. I know that with them and because of them, I will continue to grow, and I will never live on Teacher Island again. Thank you.